Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Lara, or Lara Likes Mascara, and here in this space I talk about all things consumerism, most especially over-consumerism, and how I am personally combating it, tips and tricks to sort of combat it in your own life, but through the lens of my experience and what I have done to implement changes in the hope that it will help other people. I started this journey back in 2019. That was when I really started understanding the marketing. I mean, I've always been very into makeup and shopping. This channel is mostly about makeup, and 2019 was when I really started to rethink my shopping habits through the frame of like how those habits were harming myself personally, but also having a wider negative impact on the world through the environment and the practices that were going on at the companies that I was purchasing from. In today's video, I am going to specifically be talking about influencer culture and the pros and cons of it. Now, maybe you were surprised to hear me say the pros of influencer culture, because I think I speak more to the negative sides of it, the negative sides of YouTube and TikTok and the beauty community. I talk about all of those things, but there are positives. It's not a complete negative. I have learned so much from social media and from influencers, and I follow so many myself. Like, I can't say that I do not engage with this sphere. A lot of the kind of content that I engage with is more critical of consumerism, but there are still influencers I follow who I would consider like mainstream influencers. So I don't want to say that I'm completely apart from this sphere, but I am able to critique it. And so in this video, I am going to be critiquing it, but I am also going to be talking about the positives and how they have affected my life and like the world at large. So if you are curious about what the world would look like without influencers, without social media content creators, just keep watching. So I think I want to start things off on a positive note. First, I'm going to talk about the pros, the positives of influencer culture, and then in the second half, we're going to move on to the negatives. So the first pro is the dissemination of information that would not otherwise be available, or that would be a lot harder to obtain. So I think the best example of this is the news. Right now, there is this real push against news, right? There is a suppression of news, especially in the United States right now. A lot of people just do not trust mainstream news sources anymore. I mean, even when we look at like the New York Times and CNN, I'm not even just talking about the right. Obviously, Trump's whole like fake news thing has made a lot of right-wingers not trust any mainstream news sources, except for maybe Fox News. But even people who are far to the left, like myself, do not have a lot of trust in these huge news institutions, because they have undertaken actions recently which have made them untrustworthy. So for example, I think is it the Washington Post was purchased by Jeff Bezos or by Amazon, and because of that, that paper did not put out a recommendation for the president. Usually all of these papers have like a we endorse Kamala Harris, we endorse Trump, whatever it is. But that paper did not put forth a recommendation specifically because of that. So that just shows how money and politics have gotten into news sources. And I mean, yeah, New York Times has done some really, really nasty stuff lately. So I think that there's a lot of people who just are not willing to trust or read the New York Times anymore. And particularly when it comes to matters relating to Palestine, the mainstream news is not reporting on a lot of that stuff because mainstream news is very anti-Palestinian. And so people have to turn to less mainstream news sources or things like, you know, Democracy Now! Or even TikTok and Instagram for their content. I am not subscribed to any newspapers. I subscribe to The Skim, which is kind of like an online newspaper. It comes in every morning and it's really just like a brief overview. It's just kind of like headlines. So I don't feel like it gives me a really full view of the news, but it is overall somewhat helpful. And then when I want like actual news on matters I care about, I turn to social media and people I follow. Katie Bogan is a really great TikToker that I have been following. You know, photojournalists in Gaza. Like, these are the people that you have to turn to now for information about what is happening on the ground because the mainstream news sources are not publicizing it. So I think in terms of information, social media can be a really great place to get information relating to politics. That's just one example, but that is the first thing that comes to mind for myself. And not even about like trustworthiness with news sources, but a lot of people my age, like we never have been subscribed to newspapers. And so that is where we get a lot of our news, for good or for bad. Related to this, another pro is about information, but more like knowledge and teaching that would otherwise be very cost prohibitive, but that you can access on social media. So like newspapers, as I mentioned, I'm not subscribing to a newspaper. I'm not paying a couple $100s a year, whatever it is, but I can watch people on TikTok reporting on the day or the week's news. Even when it comes to makeup, you can see I've got a full face of makeup on today, and myself, like so many other YouTubers who primarily focus on makeup, we are self-taught. We have not been to beauty school. What we have learned is through YouTube. Everything I know is from YouTube. Now, I would actually love to do a makeup course. I would love to take my makeup skills to the next level, and maybe one day I will do that, but at this point in my life, because of how much time and money I know would be involved, that's not something I'm gonna do. But most of the people who are beauty YouTubers, I would say, are self-taught. And when I say self-taught, I mean like self-taught through YouTube and TikTok. There is a whole generation of women who learned everything they know about beauty, skincare, and makeup thanks to this platform. I mean, as I mentioned, like my makeup skills are not the best, but I feel like I know more about makeup than most people I know. So it has gotten me pretty far. Other examples are like hair, hairstyles, traveling. Whenever I'm planning to travel somewhere, I always check Instagram or TikTok for like people's ideas. This is how I created my itinerary for Bosnia, for example, you know, like wedding planning. I think there's a lot of great information pertaining to weddings on TikTok. Just so much information out there that makes our lives easier because we can find it online. We know that that is always going to be available to us. Oh, something random like flowers. You can see they're dying. But I was watching someone and they were talking about how they got into flower arranging recently, and like it was all through things that they had learned from TikTok and YouTube. It was like this whole skill. They were essentially like taking a class online, and that was just all information from social media. The next pro pertains to beauty, of course, and this is finding out about things that we would not have otherwise except for YouTube or TikTok or whatever. And when it comes to makeup, this is about specific products. As I mentioned, everything I know about makeup is from YouTube, and so pretty much all of the product recommendations that I get are from YouTube. Like, it's so rare that I purchase a product that I have not heard anything about and has not been recommended to me and it's just random. Like, I purchase things based on watching other people and them talking about the products, because that's my recommendations. I don't have any friends who are like super into makeup, so I could probably say, hey, like, what's a good concealer, and then they might have some examples of concealers, but I wouldn't ask them like, what is your favorite eyeshadow palette, or like, what's the best eyelash curler, like things that are a little bit more niche. What is the best brush to apply cream bronzer with, you know? That kind of stuff, I will go to YouTube or TikTok for recommendations. In fact, I just purchased a couple of new products recently for a variety of reasons, but all of those were recommendations. It would be so weird to walk into a store and just like randomly pick out a product and have it not have been recommended to me. Like that feels, you don't know how that product is going to turn out. You might absolutely hate it because there's no word of mouth. You know what I mean? There are definitely issues around trusting people on the internet, especially if they're sponsored or, you know, maybe there was a sponsorship but they haven't disclosed it. But if you see enough people recommending a product, then you just know it's going to be good. Like my NYX concealer, everybody loves that concealer, so I knew I was going to like it. Even if one or two of those people were sponsored, like it was hyped enough that I trusted those reviews. So I think just the ability to find great products that you would not have known about otherwise, it is such a blessing. I know that because I watch beauty YouTube, I know about the best products out there, where someone else who might still like makeup and do pretty good makeup, I just know that their products aren't as high quality as mine, or even that they're not getting as good bang for their buck, because they could be getting a drugstore concealer that is just as good as the high-end concealer that they're purchasing, but they haven't heard about it. They're not in the know. So I love being in the know like that and knowing which products I actually should be purchasing. And you could expand this to like any niche here on YouTube, right? If you're really into like notebooks and stickering or like journaling, you know what the best products are. And I just think that that means you are more likely to be satisfied with your purchases because they came from real recommendations. You know what's another great example of this? Book talk. I am a huge reader. If you haven't seen my videos before, at the end of every single video, I talk about a different book that I have been reading lately. And I think book talk has really gotten people, especially young women, into or back into reading. It has just caused this absolute explosion in book publishing, which is a great thing, right? Like you walk into a store and it says book talk. It has like this whole section for book talk. And that phenomenon is incredible. Now, I must say, I don't generally agree with the kind of books that people love over on Book Talk, but just the fact that people are finding recommendations for books over there that they wouldn't otherwise have known about, or that they wouldn't otherwise be able to find books that they love, is incredible. I get a lot of my recommendations from a podcast called What Should I Read Next, which I have been listening to since 2015, right when it first came out. I was actually a guest on the podcast back in 2022 or 2023. And yeah, honestly, I would say 80% of the books I read are recommendations from that podcast, and I would not otherwise know about those books. Like, I'm finding out about these incredible books that I just would never have come across otherwise. And so I would either not be reading, I probably would not. Like, that podcast is a big part of the reason why I even got back into reading and still read today. Or I would be reading books that I didn't like as much because I would just choose randomly like what they had at the library rather than getting specific recommendations. So that kind of word of mouth, it's just much more possible online. Sure, you can get word of mouth recommendations from friends, but like, let's say out of all of your friends, only like 5 or 7 of them read, and each of them gives you a different recommendation and you don't know who to trust. Whereas on Book Talk, if you're seeing like 15 videos telling you that you should read Fourth Wing, it's like, okay, this book is a phenomenon. A lot of people love it. Maybe I should check it out. Another real benefit that I think can often be overlooked is the ability to bring people together and help people find community. In 2025, a lot of us are really struggling to find community in real life. When we were younger, for a lot of people, it was a lot easier to make friends because you were just in environments where you were around people who were either your age or had similar interests, right? Like in high school, you're just in this environment with other people who are going through the same experience as you. When you're in university, you know, most people go live in residence, and so they're exposed to the people who are living in residence, or to people in their programs or tutorials or sports groups or whatever. Like, school is a great way to meet people. But then when you become an adult and everyone's a lot busier and it's harder to see your friends, or maybe you work remotely and so you don't actually see anyone, or you are in a workspace where everyone is a lot older than you, it just becomes more challenging to make friends as you get older and to find community. And so I think that online can be a great place to find and make community with people. I mean, even here on YouTube, as I mentioned, I don't have a ton of people who are really into makeup in my real life, but I can come here and I can talk with you guys and I can make videos and I can hear about all of the products that you guys are trying to pan and you're cheering me on and trying to help me, encourage me to declutter products or to not declutter products. And I know you're going through the same things as me. And I really feel like I'm in community, not just with other people who love makeup, because that's not a hard thing to find, but other people who love makeup and love being creative with their makeup, but also love finishing off their products and getting use out of their whole collection and being conscious about their consumerism and having these important ethical values that are in similarity to me. That I can only find here through the camera online. There's other examples, like last week, the book that I talked about was John Green's Everything is Tuberculosis. And he has, I mean, the whole like Vlogbrothers community, Nerdfighteria community, I have been part of that for a while and it is actually incredible. Like, I think that community, it's so powerful and those people are so dedicated. And so whenever Hank and John sort of crowdfund a new project or are working on a new way to send money to a group of people or a community that needs it, Nerdfighteria like really steps up. So right now, John is all about fighting tuberculosis. And he recently went to Washington to be in these meetings about health policy in the US under the current administration and with the UN, and there was 250 Nerdfighters, I think he said, there to back him up and to support him and to participate in this fight against tuberculosis and to crowdfund and, you know, send money to the people who need it. Like, that kind of community, again, that can only be found online. There's definitely local groups. I know my friend Shauna Rapari, who is here on YouTube, she talked recently about joining an environmental group in her area, and that's incredible. And maybe part of that she found online, like through Instagram or TikTok. Like, there's so many groups that bring people together through social media. When you see protests on Instagram or TikTok, and it's these groups where their communication is through online. And I probably should mention here that, like, I'm naming the bigger platforms. Of course, there are other platforms now. There's Blue Sky, there's Signal, you know, like WhatsApp groups. It's not just the main platforms, but these original social media platforms sort of led to the creation of other platforms. So I'm talking about all of these platforms under one umbrella here, even if I'm just really mentioning the main, like TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, I'm referring to all forms of social media. And the last pro before we get into the cons is entertainment. It's as simple as that. I do not want to discount this, but at the same time, I think maybe too many people use social media as purely a form of entertainment. Like, don't get me wrong, I am entertained by social media. If I need a little bit of a brain break, I will definitely go take 5 minutes just scrolling on Instagram. But we also need to be using these platforms for other things rather than just admiring people's outfits or watching haul videos or talking about what like the best mascara is. So this one probably is more obvious because it is the primary way or lens through which people see social media. I think it still is important, like providing an escape, especially in the current socio-economic political context, is important. We all need an escape right now. We all need entertainment. You know, that's why Marvel movies exist. That's why action movies exist. A lot of these films like do not have any actual substance to them, but it gives us a couple hours to just like get out of our own heads and our own lives and be entertained. And I think social media is that to a smaller degree. You know, maybe your favorite activity on Friday night is to just scroll on TikTok for an hour, and you know it's not a great use of time, but it just makes you feel better. It just relaxes you. And that's okay. And that could also be a con, but I do want to say that like entertainment and relaxation is also important. And social media is definitely a form of that. And now let's talk about the cons. You were expecting this, but the first con is overconsumption. Y'all, I don't even know where to begin with this one. If you're on this channel, you know about the overconsumption problem. You know that I talk about it a lot. I've got whole videos about overconsumption. I'll link one here. And then I'll link one here. And then I'll link a whole playlist here. Overconsumption is destroying the earth. Consumer culture is destroying the planet. It's a real problem. Okay, we are all buying too much stuff. We need to care more about what we are buying. We need to, first of all, stop buying stuff. We don't need more stuff. Okay, look around you. When you look around, does it seem like there's like gaps missing? Does it seem like you need more stuff in certain places, or does it seem like, oh my god, there's so much around? Let me insert. Actually, maybe not. I was gonna say I'll insert a video of what I see when I look around. It's too much. I don't want to show you what it looks like. I have too much stuff, okay? And you do too. So first of all, you and me, we need to both stop buying stuff. And then second of all, when we do buy stuff, we need to not buy stuff new. We need to get stuff secondhand. We need to share. You don't need a drill, okay? Find a friend who has a drill and borrow their drill. You don't need a new dress for that event. Wear something you already own, or maybe go to a clothing swap, or maybe borrow a dress from a friend. We need to stop buying stuff. It's too much, it's destroying the earth, and it's also especially destroying the places and the livelihoods of those who are actually manufacturing those things, okay? When we think about certain countries and the practices there and who is creating those garments and those products, it is deeply, deeply unethical. So just stop buying stuff. Easier said than done, but I'm not going to go into any more detail than that. And yeah, obviously, influencer culture really, really feeds into this kind of overconsumption. It's not just influencer culture that does this. You know, we see marketing all over the place on our TVs, in the streets. There'll be an ad for a fragrance, whatever. Marketing is everywhere. But I feel like in this day and age, influencers are probably the #1 sellers of product, at least in North America. That's how it feels. Otherwise, why would these huge companies be spending so much money hiring influencers for their campaigns, you know? The next con to influencer culture is PR. This is very much tied into overconsumption, but basically, if you amass a certain number of followers and people who look up to you on social media, you will have brands that want to send you free product. And the catch here is that they want you to talk about those products in your videos, and they want you to recommend those products and then get people to buy those things. And PR hauls are like their own thing, okay? Like that is its own category of video. Sure, hauls are big on TikTok and on YouTube, but PR hauls are an entirely different thing because these brands will do their utmost to stand out from all of the other PR that those influencers are getting. I have seen unbelievable PR. The things that brands send, they'll be sending a whole like vending machine, a whole fridge. They're sending you like an eye cream, and they send you this massive package with like $1,200 worth of other products that are not that eye cream. It's so outlandish. It's so over the top. And a lot of it is just packaging. Like a lot of it is product that this person does not even want. They probably didn't sign up for it. They're just on the mailing list from the brand. But a lot of it is packaging that the person is just going to throw away. Sure, some of it is cardboard, so maybe some of it will get recycled. But a lot of it is just garbage. Like the PR that you see people get, I am sure there are whole teams on, like, let's say L'Oreal. There's a whole team of people who just come up with the PR packages. Like, yes, they've got tons of people who are working on the actual product, but creating a PR package is an art unto itself, and it is next level from just the types of products that influencers are going to be purchasing themselves and encouraging you to purchase. So this is something that is unique to the like influencer era. And tying into this, free product is generally valued less than product that has been purchased by that person. So it becomes easier for that individual to then declutter or throw out the product because they didn't pay for it. They have no attachment to it. They have no reason to keep it. Whereas if they actually spent money on a product, they're going to be more likely to hang on to it because they invested something in that product. But I think a ton of product that is sent to YouTubers and TikTokers and influencers, it's never used because the person did not want that product in the first place. And sure, maybe in a situation where someone has been sent way too many products, they immediately will pass those products on to a friend or donate them to a local organization. And so those products actually will end up being used and appreciated. But a lot of times, a beauty guru will end up keeping all the products because they want to be able to refer to them in their collection. They want to be able to swatch them and show how they liked each of the products. So let's say, okay, I know that Merit just released or re-released a whole bunch of lip liners. Let's say there was like 10. And someone who would ordinarily go and buy one or two of those lip liners themselves, they were sent all 10. And so whereas they could have used one or two of them and they would have loved and appreciated those products because they were sent all 10, they want to swatch all of them. They want to make a YouTube video or a reel out of it. So they use them, they swatch them, they try them on their lips, and then they can't donate them anymore. Or then maybe because they own them, they want to keep them so that they can use them in videos in the future or use them in combination with their Merit lipsticks. So they keep them, even though they're only going to use those products once a year. And in a couple of years, they're just going to have to throw them out. I think that situation happens in a lot of cases. And it's just, I mean, okay, let's talk about clothing for a second. Let's say Revolve releases this new edit. I follow someone named Emma Rose Leger. She's mostly a fashion creator. She is doing an edit, which is like a wardrobe edit with Revolve coming up. And so maybe someone who likes her would have purchased one or two of those products on their own. And then when they got tired of those products, they would have sold them because those clothing articles were expensive and they want to recoup some of that money back. But because they do partnerships with Revolve, they are actually sent every single product in that line of that wardrobe edit from Revolve. And so they don't have to spend any money on them. They don't have to invest anything in them, and they might just throw them out at the end because you can't sell products that you've been sent for free. I think some people do. Anyways, hopefully you understand what I'm getting at. There's just less value placed on products that we get for free. And so I am worried about the outcome or the life cycle of that product. Another con to the influencer space is what it does to the people who watch those influencers. I don't think it is an exaggeration to say that there is a lot more scrutiny of young women and there is more prevalence in terms of fillers and Botox and plastic surgery because of influencers. Sure, before people could compare themselves to celebrities, but there was always kind of this line where you knew celebrities, they were on this pedestal, they were the most beautiful people, they had so much money, there was just no way to attain that kind of beauty because it was unrealistic. They existed on screens, they had whole makeup teams, they had entire groups of people whose job was to make them look attractive. And so there was a certain there's no point comparing yourself to those people because they just have such a different existence to the average person. But now that influencers exist, it seems that lifestyle or that kind of appearance is actually realistic. I could look like that. I could attain that kind of wardrobe if I spend a certain amount of money, if I dedicate a certain amount of time to my upkeep, and I have all of the newest tools. I have the Dyson, I regularly get lip filler and Botox, and I attend my monthly or bi-monthly $1,000 hair appointments. It seems like if we are willing to do all that, we actually could achieve those impossible beauty standards. We can look like those people too. We can emulate that kind of lifestyle. We can have that kind of aesthetic. It seems more realistic and attainable because influencers are showing it now rather than these celebrities we can't really engage with. Influencers are a little bit more attainable. The influencer lifestyle or aesthetic, now that kind of aesthetic seems more attainable. And I think because of this, I think the more that you engage with that kind of content, the more you find yourself comparing yourself to those individuals and to their appearances and their wardrobes and their makeup collections. And the only result of that is feeling inferior. The biggest influencers have so much money. What they are doing for upkeep on a weekly basis is still not going to be attainable to the average person, even if it seems more attainable than it once did. Those people are also famous probably because of their appearance, right? Look at the big influencers. They're all beautiful. They are all thin, and they are feeding into these harmful stereotypes and desire and fat phobia and white supremacy that still very much exists. And whether or not they know it, they are participating in that and they are encouraging it. And it's always going to make us feel inferior. It can even be harmful to people's mental health. I cannot imagine growing up, like as a child and as a preteen and a teenager, comparing myself to influencers. Like, sure, we would look up to celebrities like, you know, Miley Cyrus or Taylor Swift or whoever, but it's just so different now. We didn't have Instagram or TikTok. Instagram started getting big, I think, when I was in my first or second year of undergrad, so I wasn't constantly looking online at pictures of beautiful people while I was growing up. I think that might have really been harmful to me. And the more pervasive this is, I think the more harmful it is, especially to young women growing up and who feel like they have to achieve these beauty standards and who start using anti-aging creams at age 12 or start getting Botox at age 19. That is all new, and that is all very much because of the influencer sphere. I do also wonder if this in some way has changed. I mean, you've heard about pretty privilege, right? Like, I wonder if this emphasis on appearance has actually made people prioritize appearance more than intelligence at this particular juncture. I think, like, pretty privilege, do not get me wrong, that has always been a thing, but I wonder if it has become more of a thing since the advent of social media, because people realize that they can capitalize on their appearance and that it actually pays to be more attractive and to do more upkeep and have more beauty treatments or whatever, because you are actually treated better. You do better in life. You get better promotions. There's so much research on this, and I can't help but think it is only getting more and more exacerbated as time goes on because of social media, because people have seen more and more the benefits of being beautiful and being beautiful online. And that can't be a good thing. It just can't. And this also feeds further into, like, encouraging people to get plastic surgery or to spend more time on their appearance and get Botox and everything, because they recognize how it will actually benefit them financially and career-wise. Another thing that I wonder about is, obviously influencers don't have any kind of like unionization in place. There's no job security to being an influencer. There's no paid leave if you want maternity leave or paternity leave, just parental leave or mental health leave. There's nothing to pay you while you are taking time off. There's someone I follow named Hannah Witten here on YouTube and on TikTok, and she took 3 months parental leave when she had her child. And when she came back after that, her views had just tanked. Her engagement was so much worse. And it was clearly directly because she had taken time off. But there was no world in which she wasn't going to take time off to care for her child. And 3 months isn't even that long to take off. So like, what would have happened if she'd taken off 6 months or a year? It's really scary. I feel as though the lack of unionization or solidarity amongst content creators and the lack of job security. Sure, if you are making a certain amount of income and you have a certain number of followers, you're gonna be fine and you're probably gonna keep getting brand deals. But if you haven't yet achieved that level of fame and economic security, financial security, it's a scary world out there. I think that's at least part of the reason why I wouldn't want to do YouTube full time, because it's just so precarious and unpredictable. And I wonder if this kind of lack of job security and lack of unionization, and you know, in the US, like here in Canada, we have free healthcare, but in the US they don't have healthcare. They have to pay out of pocket for that. I wonder if that encourages that kind of normalization of lack of security in the broader economic market, and that I think is really dangerous, because we need unions, we need job security, we need parental leave. And the influencer economy is becoming a wider and wider sector. More and more people are making money from content creation and becoming full-time or part-time content creators as their job. And I think the more we see that, the more there actually needs to be things in place to protect those workers. So I've been yammering on long enough. In terms of the pros and cons of the influencer economy and sector, I think it comes down to impact. Does influencer culture have a positive or negative overall impact? I think it has both. I don't know that one outweighs the other. Both are valid. All of the points I've talked about today are very real. There are pros and there are cons. So I don't really have a thesis to wrap this up, but I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you feel like there is a clear negative or positive net balance to the content creator sector. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to talk about a book that I've been reading lately, hopefully very briefly, because this has already been a long video. So I recently read Out of Egypt by Andre Achiman. Basically, he is the author of Call Me By Your Name, and that book was very much informed by his personal experience. So his family is Jewish with supposedly Italian roots many generations back, but his family lived in Turkey for a long time and then they moved to Egypt. He has this huge family, but they never felt fully welcome in Egypt, because when they moved there in the, was it 1960s? No, they were expelled in the 1960s. So they had lived there for 3 generations. Egypt was not welcome to Jews. So their friends and family, they saw them slowly getting expelled. So it's the story of his big family and yeah, how they left Egypt and how they found themselves in Egypt in the first place. Very interesting characters and individuals. It was so rich. Like, what an incredible time to live. I just thought it was such an interesting setting. And I have a soft spot for books that are about Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews. Sephardic Jews are those who come from Spain and Turkey. What other countries? Spain, Portugal, North Africa, parts of the Middle East. So if you're not Jewish and you don't know that much about Jewish history, Jewish communities in North America are generally Ashkenazi, or at least that's like the representation you see on TV and everything when you hear about, you know, bagels and lox and schmear, when you hear people talking Yiddish or using Yiddishisms. Ashkenazi Jews are from Eastern Europe, Poland, and its environs, and that is definitely overrepresented in the media. Sephardic Jews, as I mentioned, Spain, Portugal, North Africa, they have their own customs, very different culture and food scene and even language. They speak Ladino, whereas Ashkenazi Jews speak Yiddish. And then there's Mizrahi Jews who are from the Middle East, think like Lebanon, Iran, and there's not enough representation of non-Ashkenazi Jews in mainstream culture, so I love reading about them and their histories and their traditions because they are just so different from my own family's Ashkenazi traditions. But I actually didn't love the way it was written, and I felt it like really, really dragged. It was too long. I didn't love it, and I actually wouldn't recommend it. But it was an interesting story. I just didn't love the way it played out. So take from that what you will. But that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I would love to hear your comments below. I'll talk to you next week.